Well, it looks like the holidays came a little early for yours truly because today we're chatting with none other than Nick Carpenter, known under the professional moniker of Medium Build. Sir, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today. It's greatly appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you immensely. Congratulations on wrapping up your recent tour of the UK and Europe. Judging by what we've seen on social media from you, it was a fantastic success. It seemed like you had a great time as well.
We did. We did a lot of too much fun, probably.
Very cool. Well, there's also congratulations in order for the release of your full length album, Country, which came out earlier this year, and an EP that I can't get enough of called Marietta. That came out about a month ago. Two phenomenal releases that, quite frankly, I just can't get enough of.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for listening. Thanks for playing it.
So, about 2 years ago, my short attention span caught a short piece that you did for Munchies on YouTube. And that was the impetus of me finding you and becoming a massive fan. So, at the time, you were giving a tour of Anchorage. In my opinion, there was an inherent charm to that video that immediately made you likable, whether it was having dinner with your dad or going for ice cream with your mom or just hanging out with your friends in Anchorage in the way that many of us do who grow up in and around a local music scene. And from that point forward, it was a discovery process of finding songs. And, about a year after watching that video, I started seeing snippets from my friend Sam from X Ambassadors that he was working on this new project. And it turned out to be my favorite song of 2023. It's called Friend for Life, your collaboration with the boys from X Ambassadors. From then, I've just fallen deeply in love with the art that you create, and it's been absolutely amazing to watch your journey.
Wow, that is awesome to know that all this stuff I make, lands into someone's heart and soul in a way. Like that Monkeys video was just so goofy, and I'm glad it sparked anything that, especially going from like making you laugh to being able to listen to the songs later. That's awesome. And yeah, I love Sam. Can't get enough of those boys.
Well, let's fast forward to this year because you've also, not to ruin the surprise with some media that we're releasing later this month, you've also topped my favorite songs of 2024 list with your collaboration with Winnetka Bowling League and Dawes, a track called This Is Life, which at this point I'm going to call my favorite song of this century. There's something inherently beautiful about the three of you collaborating in that way. It felt like fate colliding in a way, right? I know you have relationships with both Matthew and the Dawes camp, and seeing that come to fruition, seeing all the different amalgamations of that song, whether it's you guys doing it live on stage, in the bed of a pickup truck, right, or in a highly produced space, I think it speaks to how strong all three of you are as songwriters and performers. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we're doing this interview for a radio station, but it doesn't seem like radio even matters in the context of making the three of you legendary among this generation of songwriters. And quite frankly, man, it's going to be hard to top that. Although I think with Marietta, you've come pretty close.
Thanks. I'm a huge Dawes fan, and Matt and I met, and he was like, "I'm gonna make you friends with Taylor," and I couldn't believe it. And then yeah, I just got to spend all weekend with them. They were doing 3 shows in Texas, and I popped out, and that song was just such a Matt is the egg. Matt wrote this he wrote that first verse, and he sent the track to Taylor and I feel like we just both showed up so much, and it highlights everyone's strengths while also like making space for something maybe that neither of us would make alone. I think that's kind of the magic of collaboration. Same with the song with X Ambassadors. I don't think Sam and I would have written that alone, and I think that's why, as much as I want to hide away, I force myself to say yes to collaboration because it always gets something that I didn't have and I wouldn't have made alone.
Well, it seems like you're quite collaborative in your endeavors, sir, having teamed up with artists we've mentioned previously. You've got Julian Baker on your single Yoke from the new EP, Marietta, and I've got a whole list of them that I'm not going to bother reading off because I would rather just be in the moment. But the question bears itself: is there like a mental list? Is there a physical list of people that you sort of either really want to collaborate with, or perhaps maybe there's a bucket list of dream collaborators out there, just kind of waiting for that medium build collab?
Hmm. No, I think it's like a spiritual thing. I mean, I would have never. I mean, I would Taylor from Dawes would have definitely been on that list, but it came through the friendship with Matt, and I didn't even know Matt's music until we became friends. And um, same thing with X Ambassadors. Like, I don't. If you would have told me the biggest song I'm going to make at that point in my career would have been with a band I heard on the radio 10 years ago when I was, 19, I would have been like, you're crazy. But those things, you kind of just say yes when it feels right. So obviously there's like, my heroes, or I would love to make a song with like Tyler the Creator or Lana Del Rey or like some of those like kind of Sturgill Simpson, like big headliner people. But like, I think it's just about what feels good. And the collaboration with Julian, her and I grew up together. And so that just felt natural. And now I'm finally to the point where I can say no to some things, but I try to say yes when it feels like there's going to be something, a magic, a growth, something that pushes us forward.
That aha moment, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, something that you wouldn't have had. Music's magic like that. You make something that literally didn't exist. But yeah.
I love that, man. I saw something recently where you described the two releases from this year, your full-length album Country, the EP Marietta, as Country being a zoomed out view of your youthful days, and Marietta being a very zoomed in version of your younger days growing up in Georgia. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Sure. I think in my career, I've spent a lot of time writing about relationships. That's kind of where my songwriting started, was in, brokenhearted or relationship tension. And I think as I've sort of grown into new eras, and I'm not hard on sleeve about my relationships as much, I'm looking inward and I'm looking at my childhood, I'm looking at my past. And I think this year um, was a lot of achieving dreams, a lot of me achieving my childhood dreams. Signing a record deal, touring the world, collaborating with friends and heroes. And I think when a lot of those green lights started hitting, I had to go inside and look at where I came from. And so that led to me just sort of rinsing a lot of old memories. And so country feels like just sort of this big stab in the dark at like my childhood memories, whether it's on Hey Sandra, where I'm kind of writing a character based on my dad, or talking about In My Room, where I'm literally describing my childhood bedroom and sort of the loneliness that kid felt, or Can't Be Cool Forever, where I'm giving advice to almost like future me when I raise kids, if I ever, get that opportunity. And then Marietta was very specific, right? Talking about growing up in the church and talking about my parents and the ways that they are. So I think it just, when you get a lot of your goals and your dreams and you kind of hit that that marker, it for me it caused this internal crises of like, who am I? Right? I've been chasing this car forever and I finally caught the car, and now what do I do? And for me, like the only way to sort of ground myself was to look at my past and to look at my parents and look at who I am and go really into the kind of therapeutic internal work. um, and I feel like that really helped. I really needed some grounding this year, as when you're partying with famous people and you get given a big check from a record label and you're like, oh, who am I? Like, am I still me? Am I relatable? And yeah, I think I dug into it, and maybe I'm kind of glad to be done with that era. But this has been a heavy year. It's been a really heavy year, and for better or for worse.
Understandably so. I think one of the things that makes you such an approachable and relatable artist um, is your self-awareness, right? Like I don't know that there's very many people that have a self-awareness like you do of where you've come from, how things have affected you, not only in the past but in the present, and your ability to go down those roads um, and write about them in such an open and honest way leads me to a word that is brave. I think that there's a certain bravery in writing the way you do, in being an open book, in writing so autobiographically. And to a degree, I think there's a lot of your songs that almost feel like, and I hope this doesn't gross anybody out, but it's almost like you're picking at a scab, right? Right? Like you're opening a wound, but at the same
Mm.
time, there's some catharsis that comes with that because ultimately, when you pick that scab, it gives that wound an opportunity to heal. And for me, that's the only real analogy I can make with your music because it seems so cathartic for you. And thus, as the final consumer of the art, there's also a catharsis that we on this end go through. And it's almost like a big hug from a good friend exactly when you need it. Because all of us go through the things that you've written about, except you're one of the few people that's brave enough to write about it in your own words. And I love your use of the English language. I love that there are times where the vulgar words sneak through because they have the most impact. But you're also excellent at using the proper phrasing and using words that aren't the words that most people would use in those situations. And ultimately, to me, I think all those things combined make you the very special artist that you are.
That's really kind. Yeah, I think I just never wanted to. I, I love music. Music is amazing, and it's always on in the house. It's always on in the stores. I mean, music is constantly playing, and I think I found that when I could pair music that I thought was interesting with words that felt like they were doing some good, I feel like that was kind of when the artistry unlocked for me. Or I was like, if I have someone's ear for 3 minutes, what if I told them something like a hard truth, right? What if I could get inside into some of that scab picking? I love how you say that because it is, I mean, yeah, maybe that's an ugly way to describe it, but I think a lot of the stuff I deal with is kind of ugly. And after touring it all year, I'm like, whoa, I'm kind of emotionally and spiritually exhausted. And I kind of was doing an inventory. And I'm like, I think it's because I'm talking about heavy stuff a lot. And that maybe next record I'll write stories that aren't so heavy or maybe aren't so specific to me, but this has been an era of a lot of digging at the wounds and poking at the saying the scary thing and maybe saying the thought that we all have, but people aren't don't free themselves up to say it out loud. So yeah, I really appreciate that sort of lens, and it feels real. My dad is a very interesting word. He was a lit major, but he grew up super rural, and so he has all these sort of kind of backwoods redneck lexicon from deep rural South Carolina, and that all sneaks into how he talks, and so I've just kind of taken notes and have my own little version of it. So yeah, I love words.
We can tell, sir, and I adore that you love words. Um, so you were actually up in our neck of the woods in September. You were on tour with Rainbow Kitten Surprise, and I was so excited because my whole goal was to come to that show and see you live because all I've seen are all these amazing live performances all over social media, and I just needed to feel that. But unfortunately, we had Nathaniel Rateliff and my morning jacket that same night for the radio station, and sadly, I had to be at that. So I missed out on my opportunity to see you. But the one question I had for you, because I know you mentioned this earlier, you've checked off a lot of things, right? Like you played Red Rocks, which was the dream, and you've toured all over the world without thinking about it too much. Is there one moment from this year that just pops into your brain instantly from those live performances, a certain venue, a certain moment in time that you kind of hold and cherish as like the moment of 2024?
Hmm, that's a great question. Um, Truly, it's really not the spectacular moment. I think it's playing the Atlanta show, the kind of the hometown show, right? I grew up in Atlanta, moved to Alaska when I was 18, so like there's been a lot of separation between me and Atlanta, and even me writing about it on this EP, calling it Marietta, like being very specific about being from Georgia, um, playing the sold out. I mean, it was like maybe 700 people in Atlanta. And I think maybe a song in, I just kind of, it hit me like that. in a venue that I grew up going to, and I'm playing and I'm singing my songs and I'm telling my stories. And I broke down, just kind of accepting that the things that I wanted were now in front of me, and kind of having that huge clarity of like, okay, you have this immense privilege, and you have this also, you get to wallow in this joy, and it's scary and it's awesome. And I mean, Europe is cool. Playing for 5,000 people is awesome. Playing Radio City with Rainbow Kitten was insane. But I think just playing the club in my hometown for my friends and my family, and um, seeing my cousins and people I went to high school with singing together, it just broke me in a very beautiful way.
It was almost like that full circle moment where you've come to accept the path and where you've landed. And I love that.
Yeah, totally.
Well, we've been going at it pretty heavy with the heavy stuff. So I'd like to change gears if we can and ask you a couple of fun questions that I've had on my mind for a little bit, if you don't mind, because I know that you're
Sure.
also a very fun kind of like out there in the world, enjoying your life kind of guy, and I love that. So your social media has shown your appreciation for automobiles quite a bit recently, whether it was you sort of adoring that very oddly colored green Mercedes, or perhaps a recent reel I saw where you were extolling the virtues of your Ford Ranger pickup truck, but also noticing Toyota Corolla. If there was one car that you could get your hands on, sort of the medium build dream vehicle, what's that dream car?
That's amazing question. I literally was asked this yesterday, and my band leader Paul, who has the really good hair, he could not be more repulsed by this. Um, but the dream vehicle is like an '85 Toyota Land Cruiser. It's just the big boxy. I mean, they're mint. I mean, they take really good care of them in Japan. Over here, they've kind of become this sort of broy beach, like kind of rich guy beach thing. But the Land Cruiser, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's boxy, so much glass. Um, they really, even like three different generations of Land Cruisers, they're just so cool. Yeah, I'm a sucker for a big boxy truck. I know that's like the kind of classic macho BS, but that's the dream, man. Or any old truck. They're just the best. They're so beautiful. I don't need a like sports car. Just give me like an '89 F-150. That's what I need.
There you go, man. We're on the same page there because I am obsessed with station wagons, preferably pre 1990 station wagons.
Yes.
Yeah, nothing speaks to America more than a pickup truck or a station wagon, in my opinion.
Yeah, big, boxy, especially the station wagons that used to have my aunt had this old, I think it was an Oldsmobile, and you could put the kids facing out the back window too in the station wagon. Oh man, that
Yeah,
was fun. I loved sitting in that back seat, watching the cars behind you.
great moments from childhood, man. So I have one last silly question for you, and I'm sure you've been asked this a million times, but I have to know, in actuality, if you had to guess, how many times have you seen The Princess Bride?
I don't know if anyone's ever asked me. That's good. Let's say we watched it probably every year as a family, and then my brother he was in a play, a staged version of it at his high school, and so I probably watched that. I probably went to that every other of that, so probably seen that 10 times. Let's go. Let's say safely 25 to 30 times.
I think that's a good number,
Yeah.
especially given your age and when the movie came out. I think that's an appropriate amount of times. We'll definitely, let the thousand times go. Just based on how well you bend a word, sir. So, my final question for you, kind of an open ended one. 2024 is a massive year for you with the release of an album, an EP, international tours, critical acclaim. Uh, just wondering what the plan is for 2025 and where you see yourself potentially a year from now.
Hmm. Well, I the cool thing about this year is that I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the machine. I learned a lot about touring. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about record labels and publishers, and I learned where the money goes. I got, I bought a house. I did all of these things, and as much as I would love to just like kind of rest and go away and chill, I I think I actually just want to do it all again, but better, because I can now see like some of the things, the ways I lost, and not that there's any losses this year, but just I'm like, okay, all right, I want to make an album and be a bit more intentional about this, and this, and I want to get ahead of this thing, and I want to tour better. I want to tour more like healthier. I've just started making the next record. We've got kind of one song done, and it's just enough where I'm like, oh yeah, because I was kind of like lost in my head. I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to follow all this? But you get one, and then you're like, all right, we can do this. Like it's just one puzzle piece, and that opens the next thing. And I'm excited to sit at home and drink coffee and make songs. I built a little studio in my house, and I just am learning how to use it. I'm like very like a child with the electronics, but just having those tools at home and being able to cook and kind of just be, I want to be in my house. I want to tour a little less. But at the end of 2025, I'm hoping that there's just a record that I'm really, really like proud of. And kind of, I would love to have that out by the end of the year. And, and not that I'm proud of country, but just, I want to stay proud. And I want to get more of myself in there. I think I learned a lot about working with teams this year, and there's a lot of things where I learned you give and take, and I think now I'm like, all right, how can I be even more involved? How do I, from the pictures to the fonts to the rollout to the, I want to, I'm so hungry to be in it. I don't want to like be one of those artists that doesn't know what's going on. I want to be so deep in it, and yeah, I think year from now, I be done with that, have that out, and probably be gearing up for another tour, which is crazy to say as I'm so exhausted and need probably like a month of sleep. But I don't know. I want to do it better. I want to do it sharper and crisper, and yeah, explore new sounds, find new stories to tell, new phrases that my dad has mumbled somewhere that no one's ever put in a song.
I love that, man. I love how introspective and authentic you are, and I can't thank you enough for your time today. And I also want to say thank you for being unabashedly yourself in every form, whether it's on social media, when you're recording your music, because there is a severe lack of authenticity in the world in the modern day. And you, sir, are a beacon of light, showing people the path to finding not only authenticity, but to also understanding that sometimes you need to dig into yourself and evaluate and become self-aware before you can move forward. And that's a lesson I know a lot of people took from you this year, because I see it all over the social spaces. So a huge thank you to you, not only for your time today, but for your contributions to making society, the music scene, and the world a better place through your music and through being Nick Carpenter, aka Medium Build, to the nth degree. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. That's beautiful. I really appreciate you having me, and can't wait to get back upstate.